good for you. I would have been curious about you.
Well, yeah.
I only have a dollar to put my plate on.
This is not an issue.
No, I know. But I like to have people like this. But I make a contribution. I get an allowance from Marjorie.
Yes.
Or I would give you. If I were working,
Not a problem.
I think what I'll do is I'll have this on the podium in case I need it.
Okay.
And I'll use the microphone up there otherwise. And I think I still have it muted, so it should be all set. If I need it, I can grab it. Does that work?
Sounds good to me.
Okay.
It's on, I think.
I hope I'm not taking up too much space.
Don't worry about it.
I'll move this over here. He's having a little trouble this morning, and I don't like often think attitude like him. This was Saturday. This brings it. Dr. Pumpkin, you know.
Yes.
I told her that we have.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he said, we'll find everybody with their surface. And that's been the case.
Wonderful.
I have a great attitude. And if I did have this attitude, then I was always gosh, and a bang on the teacher. But you know, I was, and I was sitting when I taught there at the University of Iowa.
Yeah.
And they appreciated what I did. But you know, I came to South Dakota. Nobody realizes humanistic way. Nobody realizes in South Dakota that humanistic way of teaching
Oh.
is really important. And you know, I taught at the University of South Dakota. Very strict. Very, very strict. That's what they wanted. Not me. I'm a liberal. I don't want to agree. You know, really don't.
I went to medical school when we didn't believe in grades.
50 years. I went to Grinnell College when they didn't believe in grades. One of the best colleges in the nation. Grinnell is like number 17 among liberalized colleges.
Yes, it is.
And you can know that overly Austin is like 13.
Really?
Yeah, we have a great college here in South Dakota.
I didn't realize it was that high.
Than any other college or university here. Except one, Dakota State. But in the area of technology, Dakota State has come so far. Every college has come so they've become number one in that area.
Are they really?
Yes, they are.
Wonderful.
I was a student there for a short time. I took some industrial and technical writing. But you know, the course I did the best in was literary criticism. What else would I do?
I'm not even going to touch that
I
one.
get an MFA and MA in English. I did very well. And an EDS, I got 4.1 EDS, 3.9 in the MA. I'm very well educated.
You certainly are.
And I didn't do so well in the MA, it was about 3.5. But my grades were good enough to get into 2, 3 doctoral programs.
Wow.
And one of them, I would have succeeded at the University of Oregon. But Marge wouldn't go too far with it. And I would have done very well. But you know, I got letters from them when I was accepted. It said, you entered this PhD program at your own difficulty and no possibility of a job. You know, there are too many PhDs in English.
Now, I didn't know that.
Way too many. People think it's easy, and they get into it, many drop out, and the rest try to fill up all the There are other areas where they could work opposite, and they could take 2 or 3 second languages and become translators. But you can't tell me. I could have been German. I studied German. I was in Germany 5 months at the Goethe Institute. Learning German. I could speak German. And also, I lived in Foraging at the biggest department store in Munich, in the camera department. I said, camera.
You are a photographer.
Yes, and when I came back, I got 2 certificates from the New York Institute of Photography.
I'm gonna go a little voicer. Excuse me, Chuck. Chairs are for.
Welcome to today's worship service. We are grateful that you are here with us today. My name is Kevin Cole. I'm a longtime member, and while you have not seen me up on living services, I used to do it quite a bit once upon a time. I'm the service coordinator, the lay leader today, and our mission is here at All Souls is to seek truth, practice love, and celebrate life. Whether you're doing this for the first time, or you've been a member for a long time, you are welcome here. Whatever faiths you have known or not known, or whatever your heritage, you are welcome here. If you are this tall, you are welcome here.
How tall?
Babies.
Whatever faiths you have known or not known, or whatever your heritage, you are welcome here. Whatever questions you hold, whatever truths you seek, whatever sorrow you have known, whatever joy has filled your heart, whoever you are and whomever you love, you are welcome here. And now for a few announcements. Our order of service, which we should probably next Sunday's program is noted there. We also have a weekly email blast newsletter. If you're not receiving, you would like to, we can help you out with some sign-up sheets for that in the easy way. We have a Facebook page, which some of you probably found us that way, or our website, sfu.org. And if you go to the calendar, the events are posted there as well. If you're not received, let's see. And I invite you to stay for conversation, coffee, and a circle discussion after today's service. Are there others who have announcements? Here comes Paul.
Good morning, Sioux Falls.
Good morning.
I am the chair of the pledge drive this year, and we're winding up our pledge drive. Many of you have sent in your pledge cards or deposited them in the box, which we have at the back of the room. We encourage you to pledge to support the work of our church. If you're a friend or a member, or just feel the need to support us, we'd be willing to have your contribution. Our pledge drive ends at the end of April, and so we're hoping to get everything in before then. Thank you so much. You're sure all souls. That's our pledge drive. Thank you.
Eric. Good morning, folks. I'm Eric, and I'm wearing the membership hat right now. Over the past week or so, we've had off a membership where you find out what it means to become a member of All Souls Church and about Unitarian Universalism. And we had 9 people come to those classes. Wow. If anyone that missed that class and would like to find out more, chase me down. And we can schedule, something to introduce you to All Souls and Unitarian Universalism. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Sandy. I have 2 announcements. Our family had been hosting a Keeper Cultural House every Wednesday night from 6 to 8 p.m. And all of you are welcome to attend. If you are interested, just come to see me at the end and we'll give you more details. On another note, there is a women's circle happening on Friday, May 5th. And if the weather is good, we're going to try this time to do it outside at Good Earth State Park. It's from 7 to 9 p.m. and it's open to any woman. Thank you.
So this morning, our speaker will be Alicia, who's going to be speaking on an Earth Day theme of foraging, finding food and sustenance that the earth already provides us. After children's time, there will be spirit play for the children. We'll sing them out, and whenever children would like to be a part of that after our children's time up front, welcome to do so. That will happen during the service. And as I said earlier, after the service, we will go into social time and coffee mode. Our coffee is downstairs, and about 11:15 or so, we'll start circle discussion up here, and whoever wants to we can chat with the speaker about today's service. Now it's time for our chalice lighting, and Fiona is going to help us. Chalice. These are words from Sitting Bull. Behold, my friends, the spring has come. The earth has gladly received the embrace of the sun, and we will soon see the results of its love. Thank you. Please rise if you're able, and we'll join together and sing our opening hymn, number 349, We Gather Together, 349. Our first reading is number 465 from Wendell Berry. It's our responsorial. I will read the Roman text, and you folks can read the italicized text. By the way, I'm a graphic designer, so sometimes I miss when we describe what the different types of text are. Wisdom to survive. If we will have the wisdom to survive, to stand like slow-growing trees on a ruined place,
renewing and enriching it.
If we will make our seasons welcome here, asking not too much of earth or heaven,
Then a long time after we are dead, the lives our lives prepare will live here.
their houses strongly placed upon the valley's sides,
Fields and gardens rich in the windows, the river will run clear as we will never know it.
and over it, birds sound like a canopy.
On the levels of the hills will be green meadows, stopped bells in new shade.
On the steeps where greed and ignorance cut down the old forest,
Fan, the rich leaf falling, drifting on its roots.
the veins of forgotten springs will have opened. Families will be singing in the fields.
In their voices they will hear a music rising out of the ground.
They will take nothing from the ground, they will not return. Will there be grief at parting?
Memory native to this valley will spread over it like a grove, and memory will grow into legend, and legend into song, song into sacrament.
The abundance of this place, the songs of its people and its birds, will be health and wisdom and indwelling light.
There is no paradisial dream. Its hardship is its possibility.
Thank you, Mr. Berry. Now we will have a story for all ages. Alicia is an author, a forager, and a UU from Southwest Minnesota. And she's got a message for you who are young at heart, and those of you who are this tall, or so moving forward, if they'd like to, if you're comfortable.
Look at everything.
Yay.
clumpy and lumpy and batteries. They're pretty and creepy, sinister, sweet, harmless or poisonous, tasty to eat. They're funny and funky, hard to beat. They could go on for days. Whatever their shape, their color, their size, every mushroom's a wee little prize for their magical gifts that materialize right at your grateful feet. If ever you find that you've forgotten how a forest smells in spring, or the feel of a river rock in your home, or the angry chatter of an interrupted squirrel, then you must find the nearest grown-up and insist, or nicely ask, that you both go find some wild place to remind you. I promise you, if you do, you will come home with pockets full of magic. The fairy's retirement. Once there was a fairy who lived in the woods under a mushroom by a white oak tree. She did all the things that a fairy should, and she dreamed of a life by the big blue sea. She helped the worms and she helped the spiders. She helped the flowers and she helped the bees. She helped her mama and she helped her neighbors. She lived a good life and then moved to the sea. Tiny worlds. Science books taught me that all of the nature we touch becomes part of us, part of an invisible world on our skin and in our bellies. The more parts of nature we touch, the stronger our tiny armies become. The places we touch go with us, become us. The trip to the ocean, the oak tree we climbed in the afternoon, the garden we planted, the flowers we picked, the driftwood we gathered, the hands we held, all of them join our personal biome of who we are forever. Little treasures. Nature is a loving mother, giving so much to us. Here, my child, here is a crystal hidden in a gold rock. Here is a shooting star. Here is a rose overstuffed with beauty. Here is the scent of lemons. Here is the feel of soft clover under your bare feet. Here is a rainbow in a wet sky, stretching as far as you can wish. Favorites. My favorite color is the red of a poisonous mushroom that knows it can't give you food, so it must give you beauty. My favorite color is the deep purple black of crushed elderberries in our favorite lake at midnight. My favorite color is the fresh green of lemony-tasting wood sorrel with its perfect heart-shaped leaves. My favorite color is the thick, dark brown of good soil that makes our garden fat with veggies. My favorite color is the orange of a monarch butterfly, or the soft white of Florida beaches, or the dusty greenish gray of Spanish moth that hangs from the Georgia oak trees. My favorite color is nature. And last one today. I wish for you dirt under your fingernails in spring, a cool creek to wade in, a window to watch the birds, a generous neighbor with a fruit tree, good breezes on hot days, a well-worn path in the woods, and that you take the time to love them all.
Thank you, Alicia. Kids are welcome to go downstairs for spirit play with Sam Green. Go down,
Peace, go down in peace. May the spirit of love surround you everywhere, everywhere you may go.
In this congregation, we found it helpful to share the ups and downs of our lives by the practice of taking a stone from the bowl, holding it in our hand, warming it, and expressing our thoughts and our concerns. And then placing the stone in the water so the ripples of the water carry our joys and concerns out into the wider world. I'll start just with a quick little sharing school story. Alicia's a friend of mine. This morning is the first time we've actually met in person. We met through Facebook, and I can't remember if it was on purpose, deliberate, or I sometimes accidentally hit friend requests and become friends with people and interestingly, most of the time, they work out very well. In fact, last Sunday evening, also met my friend Eric Harold, who hails from North Carolina and is now living in Iowa. And he is also a friend. This was last Sunday was the second time I met him. I met him first on his, we met through Facebook. I'm the administrator for the Facebook page, and sometimes I get messages, questions about services and stuff, and he was looking at moving to South Dakota and All Souls and UU, and so on and so forth. So we just quickly, okay, let's just become Facebook friends, and won't talk on the phone once in a while. He's looking for job leads, etc. Anyway, I first met him back in '93 on his way through Sioux Falls, and he was on his way to West River, South Dakota at that time. So anyway, making friends, and this is to making friends and meeting people, and that sort of thing. I'd also like to come forward and share some of the joys and concerns. Welcome back, Paul.
Thank you. Yeah, so as Kevin says, we were visiting our daughter and son and granddaughter, who's just a year and a half, and so we had spring in Virginia, and now we get spring in South Dakota, so that was exciting.
I just wanted to, I'm Pat Lockett, and just over a year ago I had my left hip joint replaced, and so I passed the 1 year mark, and they both work. I can walk and go up and down the stairs without any problems, so don't wait if you need this done. It's good.
I'm Jennifer and my wife be going to assisted living on Tuesday.
Oh, my goodness.
I'm Janet Coonsey, and I have a concern for we have a person who lives with us in our house. We have a couple people who live with us, and one's an alcoholic. She's struggling, and it's been challenging, but we're still hanging in there. And so things have gotten better in the last few days, and so that's very.
I now put in one more stone that symbolizes all of your joys and concerns, shared and unshared. Made ripples wash out over all of us, together as a community. Now, please let's pause for a moment of silent reflection as we consider what we have just heard and what is in our own hearts and in our own minds. Now we'll drown out the silence with our hymn number 175. We celebrate. We celebrate the love of life, number 175. Stand if you wish, stand if you can.
We celebrate the well of life, its magnitude we sing. For we can see divinity in every living thing. A fragment of the perfect whole in cactus and in quail, as much in tiny barnacle as in the great blue whale. Of ancient dreams we are the sum, our bones linked stone to star, and bind our future worlds to come with worlds that were and are. Respect the water, land, and air, which gave all creatures birth. Protect the lives of all that share the glories of the earth.
Yesterday was Earth Day, and got missed, but I do have a reading or two before our message today. First is from William Shatner, the actor who played Captain James Tiberius Kirk of the Starship Enterprise. And as you know, last year at the age of 90, he rode a rocket to get to the edge of space. And these are his remarks. I was absolutely wrong. The strongest feeling that dominated everything else by far was the deepest grief that I have ever experienced. I understood in the clearest possible way that we were living in a tiny oasis of life, surrounded by an immensity of death. I didn't see infinite possibilities of worlds to explore, of adventures to have, or living creatures to connect with. I saw the deepest darkness I could have ever imagined, contrasting so starkly with the welcoming warmth of our nurturing home planet. This was an immensely powerful awakening for me. It filled me with sadness. I realized that we had spent decades, if not centuries, being obsessed with looking away, with looking outside. I did my share in popularizing the idea that space was the final frontier. But I had to get to space to understand that Earth is and will stay our only home, and that we have been ravaging it, relentlessly, making it uninhabitable. And I'll follow with these words from Carl Sagan, from his book Pale Blue Dot, A Vision of the Human Future in Space. Consider again that dot, Earth. That's here. That's home. That's us. On it, everyone you love, everyone you know, everyone you have ever heard of, every human being who ever was, lived out their lives. The aggregate of our joy and suffering, thousands of confident religions, ideologies, and economic doctrines. Every hunter and forager, every hero and coward, every creator and destroyer of civilization, every king and peasant, every young couple in love, every mother and father, hopeful child, inventor and explorer, every teacher of morals, every corrupt politician, every superstar, every supreme leader, every saint and sinner in the history of our species lived there on a mote of dust suspended in the sunbeam. And now I welcome Alicia.
I'm short, so I need my knees.
Ta-da.
Hi, I'm Alicia Baer, and I'm a forager and mama and author from Southwest Minnesota, and also attend the UU Church in Mankato. Our family first started foraging about 20 years ago, and we started as a homeschool adventure. We just wanted to see what it was like, and the first thing we ever foraged was acorns. And we expected them to taste terrible. If you've ever tasted like hardtack that the Civil War soldiers used to have to carry that was made out of wheat and wheat flour and water, they'd carry that around. We expected it to be survival food like that. And we were absolutely amazed that once we processed the bitter tannins out and roasted them and ground them into flour, they were utterly delicious. And that began our journey with foraging as more and more of our sustenance. Every year since then, we've tried to gather acorns so that at least at Thanksgiving we would have acorn muffins and things like that to eat. But then over time, especially as acorn flour is of course gluten-free, and we have gluten-free kids, became bigger and bigger for that, and also because I began experimenting more and more with the things that you can do with it. You can use it a lot of the ways you use corn, so you can make like tortillas and porridge and things. So we went from there to elderberries came next. If anybody remembers the H1N1 flu that was so scary about 15 years ago, one thing that people kept saying is you need elderberry syrup, and that'll protect you, and if you get sick, it'll help get over it quicker. And so I ordered little dried elderberries from Mountain Rose Herbs, and I made it up, and it worked really well for our family. And I told my husband, I know they grow all over. We've got to find some for next year. That's our goal for next year. We're going to find elderberries. And the next year he found this many dried elderberries. We had a little jar. I was so proud of it. And at this point, we now forage gallons and gallons of elderberries. And today, if you join us afterwards, I brought elderberry lemonade that you can try. You can use elderberries for baking, medicinal purposes, wine. A lot of people have elderberry wine, things like that. So basically, we began foraging more and more. We're a fairly large family. We're a family of 7. And often we were a family of 8 as we took in extra kids, sometimes for a pretty long time. And we're a low-income family. So it became a really, really big part of how we fed our family healthy food on very little money. What I've found over the years, though, is that it didn't just help us financially or just because it tasted good, but it also helped us health-wise, and it really helps the environment, which for some people seems a little counterintuitive, but foraging is an incredible blessing, not just to us, but to our communities and to the environment when done sustainably. At this point, we now forage up to 400 pounds of wild foods a year. And we don't live in a country, we live in a little town, but on a little city lot. Some of them we find in our own yards. I went to a friend's house in Nebraska who wanted to know if she had anything wild growing in her yard that would be edible or medicinal. And in one afternoon on a July day, I found 32 wild edible and medicinal plants that she could use. So there's a lot, like even in your garden, if you have a garden, you probably have lamb's quarters growing wild. Those are better tasting than many of the greens that you can grow in your garden, and they don't bolt and get bitter in the summertime. And most people pull those out and they compost them, or even worse, throw them away. And they're tasty, they're very mild tasting. You can use them anywhere you've used spinach, so soups, casseroles, things like that. A lot of other things, like in your lawn, you may have plantain leaf, which was once known as white man's foot because it grows in disturbed land and it sort of
kept growing farther west, the more we went farther west. But it's a weed that grows in grass, especially grass that's not very healthy. And what we use it most for in the poultice, if one of the kids gets a bee or wasp sting, you just chew up a leaf, you put it on the sting, and in less than a minute, the pain is gone. And people also, it can be eaten, it's kind of stringy, fibrous, but it also can be made into salves and things like that. It's not right now yet, but I guarantee you it's in the grass around here. Plantain leaf is everywhere. It's not plantain like the banana. It's it's a leaf. But in your own yard, you can find wild things, but also in parks, in sometimes neighborhoods, all sorts of places like that. But one of the things that people don't realize also is that wild foods are so much more nutritious than our modern hybridized foods. One thing, even if you're talking about even things that we've been growing for 200 years, we've grown them in order to be milder tasting, to get rid of the bitterness, to make them sweeter and sweeter, starchier and starchier, and that makes them more palatable, but it gets rid of a lot of the nutrition that was once such a star. They also are being grown in soils that are being fed by decomposing leaves and things like that, instead of soil that's being grown for the same crop year after year that's very depleted. If you've looked into vitamin content, you found that the vitamin content of modern vegetables isn't what the FDA says anymore because it's been depleted over so many centuries of the same ground being used. So, and then also what they found recently, scientists have found that basically the hardship principle makes plants healthier. And they're even recommending this for gardeners now. If you want your garden crops to have higher levels of, for instance, antioxidants, which protect us from cancer, tumors, and such, plants actually produce more of those if they're stressed. So if they have to go through periods of drought, or if they're being nibbled on by bugs, or that sort of thing, they actually strengthen themselves. When we eat them, we're actually getting more of those anthocyanins and antioxidants and all of those. So we're actually, it benefits, it sounds a little harsh, you know, wanting to stress out your plants, but it actually does produce healthier plants. Another way that forage foods are so much healthier is you're eating them generally the day or the day after they're picked. And we know that once fruits and vegetables are picked, they start losing their nutritional value pretty quickly. That's one reason that frozen food is often healthier than fresh food that's on a grocery store shelf, because it may have been there for weeks, sometimes months. You know, in the case of, there's some crops that will last for months on a store shelf. With a foraged food, you're probably eating it the day you picked it, so it's got the absolute maximum amount of nutrition. They're in season, they're typically organic, you know, unless you're, for instance, if you pick wild asparagus next to a field, wild asparagus grows frequently in ditches and along fence lines, and so if you pick it there, then there might be pesticide runoff. But generally, it's organic. So you're getting fresh, free organic food. We also know that when you forage, you tend to have a bigger diversity of foods that you're eating. And so that's one thing that they're starting to recommend more and more. I read a book recently that recommended that we all should have at least 50 different types of plants that we consume a week. And since reading that, I've read it a few other times as well, and that's not just for the different nutrients, but also because that's best for our gut biome, and we want the healthy bacteria, which we're starting to lose out as a society because of our monocultures. We're eating the same crops, but the more diversity we have in plants that we eat, the better it is for our gut biome. And so I've been trying to they say you should have at least 30, but 50 is maximum. And since reading that, I've tried to kind of keep track. And you can count things like spices, like for instance, or herbs, like basil. If you make a pesto, then that would count. If you had a little on a pizza, it would not count. But with foraged foods, you end up with so many foods that aren't even available in grocery stores. So many different things, like mulberries. Has anybody here had mulberries before? Yeah, you are not gonna find those in a store. You can buy dried mulberries on Amazon for like $20 a package. And you put them in smoothies apparently because they're so nutritious, they're considered a superfood. But the only time you see them is generally in people's yards, and people are complaining, that it's ruining their driveway with the purple berries and purple bird poop and such. But mulberries are delicious. What we do is we put a tarp under the tree, you go, you shake it, they all fall onto the tarp, you gather them up, and our kids used to go home and have mulberries with cream and sugar, that sort of thing, or we put them in smoothies, that sort of thing. Nettles, everybody considers, such a terrible, invasive, painful weed, but those are incredibly nutritious. They're one of the most nutritious foods, wild or not, that you can use. And once you blanch out the sting with a couple of minutes of boiling water, they no longer sting, and you can use them the way you'd use spinach or any other mild green. And that little girl there, Fiona, I have pictures of her drinking pineapple nettle smoothies when she was little. She used to love them because they're very mild green. They're not bitter like some that you can put in a smoothie. So they're actually a wonderful thing that we, generally pull up and try to get rid of in society. There's even, if anybody's familiar with kudzu down south, it's an invasive weed. It covers their telephone poles, their buildings, everything. It's edible. It's useful in a whole lot of different ways. You can make rope out of it. It's edible. Livestock can use it. Instead, we poison it and we pull it out and burn it. But and then also foraging obviously gets us out in nature. You get your vitamin D. You get your fresh air. You get your exercise. We're starting to learn more and more. In Japan, they do the forest bathing, and they've actually found that trees actually emit a chemical that helps us physically and mentally. There is something to the forest bathing, but getting outside also is something we all need more of. There's a book that I got a few years ago that I was so interested in because it's called Eating on the Wild Side. The whole premise of this book, and it was a best-selling book, the premise is that our ancient plants that we would be foraging are so much healthier than our modern plants, the things that we can get in grocery stores. And so I thought it was going to tell me what to forage. Instead, she says, since it's impossible to forage nowadays, here's what you can buy in grocery stores that comes the closest to the healthy ancestors of these plants. And she goes on to say things like, our golden delicious apples no longer have any of the apple benefits that traditionally, apples a day keeps the doctor away, because they found that when they did studies, the patients who were having an apple a day of golden delicious were actually getting worse health-wise because it's so different from the apple that they were used to studying. So she recommends things like you want the lettuce that's the reddest. You want the ones that are the most open because when they're closed up, they're basically protecting all those inside leaves from the sun and from stressors, and so they don't have to create as many antioxidants and all of that. And so she goes through and tells you, here's what to get that's closest to kale. Here's what to get that's closest to aronia berries. Well, aronia berries, a friend of mine just pulled all hers out of her garden because she thought they were so annoying. But again, these things, they might be stronger, they might be more bitter, but you can learn how to use them well. So, in addition to all of that, which is all ways that it's healthier for us, foraging is also way better for the environment, which at first I was like, aren't we taking advantage of the environment? But no, for one thing, when we're getting fresh food, it's not packaged, it's not getting shipped to us from thousands of miles away, it's not wrapped in plastic, it's literally, generally, food that's falling to the ground and getting wasted, that's rotting, turning to compost, on the floor of the park or whatever. It's, in many cases, sorry, I made notes, but I'm just kind of going all over the place. In many cases, we can forage things that are invasive, and so we actually help the environment by pulling them. One big example is garlic mustard. Garlic mustard isn't going to be your favorite wild food to eat. It's not. It's bitter. But you can take all you want. You can use it for pesto and stuff like that. And every time you pull that, you're helping the forest or the park or whatever, because it's incredibly bad for the rest of the environment where it's growing, because it'll sugar it all out. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put on this so I can talk. I'm going to pass out a few things for you to kind of get a feel for what we forage. All right, can everyone hear me?
Yeah.
All right, here it is. So first, these are acorns. Now with acorns, what you need to do is a lot of work. Let me see if I can switch this. I'm going to enlist my husband. So with acorns, first what you need to do is what we do is we do sink or float. You put them in a bunch of water. And all the ones that float, you get rid of. Then you can smell that, those are roasted. So once you do that, then you have to leach out the bitter tannins. The tannins are what make them very strong and unhealthy taste. They're not good for you. Tannin is also what gives like dry wine. It's kind of puckering flavor to it. So you can either hot water, leach those out, or you can soak them over a very long time in cold water. Those were hot water leach. So you just put them in hot water, you boil off the dark brown water, fill it up again, pour it off until it's mostly clear water. And then you can either dry them or roast them. Those are roasted and it gives it sort of a coffee scent. They are sometimes used for a coffee substitute. I actually think it's better than coffee. But then you can grind it, you can use it in any way that you would use cornmeal or flour or anything like that. It doesn't have gluten, so if you bake with it, then you need to cut it with either a gluten-free flour or with a wheat flour or something. And we cut it, usually we use it about 1 part acorn flour to 2 parts other flour. And one of the main reasons is because it's a lot of work to get acorns, and so we don't want to use 4 cups at a time for a cake. But you can use them just on their own for things like tortillas. You can use crackers. In my acorn foraging book, I think I have 90 recipes. So we've made acorn patties out of them, vegetarian patties. People use them in meatballs. We've made biscuits, cakes, porridge. Since it works like cornmeal, it thickens like a porridge, so you can make like a cream of wheat that's cream of acorn. And that's my oldest, Victoria, right there, and their fiance Gabe raved about acorn porridge. So if you come downstairs afterwards, I've baked an acorn spice cake with cream cheese frosting, and it's gluten-free. And you can try some, and you can say you've eaten acorns after today. And there's also elderberry lemonade down there, so you can also say that you've had elderberries. On the subject of acorns, I just want to read this quote that I think says a whole lot about how foraging can be used for sustainability. And this is by the man who founded the Fish and Wildlife Service. He said this in 1919. My book was by a kombucha accident, so it's been through a lot of. Yeah. All right, so C. Hart Merriam, the founder of the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service in 1918 said that a food of such genuine worth should be disregarded by our people is one of many illustrations of the reluctance of white man to avail himself of sources of subsistence long utilized by the Native American Indians. We seem to prefer crops that require laborious preparation of the soil, followed by costly planting and cultivation. rather than those provided without price by bountiful nature. So, and in there I also point out, they did a study in California and found that just a fraction of the oak forests that are already there in 3 years could completely replace the need for wheat. And those just fall to the ground. And obviously wildlife does rely on acorns as well, but there's absolutely plenty. Trust me, when we forage all year long, there's plenty the squirrels and the turkeys and all of those can do without. So bringing another forage food. This is a mushroom. This is pheasant back mushroom. I'll give it to you even though you tried it. But we forage a lot of mushrooms every year, and pheasant back is one of the ones that people find when they're looking for something else. It's very, very common. It's also called dryad saddle. Has anybody heard of either of those? Nope? Okay. It's usually about this big, and it looks like it looks like a saddle on the side of a tree, or like a pheasant's back is the name. And usually this time of year, we many of us go looking for morels. I don't know if any of you are morel lovers. Often, even people who don't consider themselves foragers will say, oh, yeah, I like morels. But people will go looking for morels, and then what they'll find is pheasant back. And pheasant back is a good mushroom. It's absolutely edible. And if you get it when it's very fresh, then it can be like sliced and sauteed or breaded or that sort of thing. But it gets chewy very quickly. And so once it gets chewy, what most people do is they'll just use it for a broth. It's still nutritious. But what we do is we dry it, we grind it, and then we can use it in breading, we can use it in soups and stews. I have a morning health drink that I make, and I actually have pheasant back powder in that because it's so full of minerals, fiber, and things that are really good for our guts. And so I have it in that, but you can sort of sneak it in, all these different things. And it's got this really interesting flavor, nothing like mushrooms. So that's another example of something where you can use it all year long, even in the dead of winter. You know, in Minnesota, we can't be foraging typically other than like pine needles, which you can use for tea, you know, in the winter, but we still have all of these that we're using. So here's another example. This is what's called corn mint or water mint, and that's from near a lake, and that would be used for a tea, or you could make a syrup, you know, any kind of flavoring. And to do that, you could do, you know, make it with the sugar, and then you could add it to your lemonade or anything like that. But it's got this really nice mint flavor. Some mints are a little more skunky if you forage them, like cat mint. Cat mint is very good at keeping mosquitoes away. If you just grow it in your yard, it'll come as a weed, but let it be, it'll keep mosquitoes away. But it also, cat mint is, it's good for calming, it's good for the stomach, and nerves, and like helping if you have some anxiety, sleeplessness, that sort of thing. But it's kind of skunky, you know, musty. And so it's better to have it mixed with another mint like that mint. And then here's another example. This is ramp salt. And this is something that my son and I, made up for the farmer's market. Is everyone familiar with ramps? Do you know what they are?
Oh, yes,
No?
yes.
Wow, okay. Ramps are wild greens that grow in the springtime for a very short period of time. And people go crazy over them in America and Canada. And they have festivals for them. And it's one of the things that people forage for the most in the spring. And there's always sort of some drama about it because people are worried that ramps will be over-foraged, over-harvested, because they're very slow growing. But they sell them at farmers markets and at fancy stores, and they get ridiculously high prices. They're sort of like a garlic leaf.
Right.
Wait. Okay.
So, it's-
And I also wanted to point out that even in the city you can forage. This is a study that I printed out that was done by a group called the Open Source Food Project in Berkeley. And what they did is they gathered as many plants as they could in a 9 square block area of San Francisco. And it was heavily trafficked and urban area. And what they found is they found 52 edible plants in this 9 square block area. And then they had them tested to make sure that they were healthy, that they weren't polluted, that sort of thing. And the results were, they said, edible wild greens were abundant even during record droughts. Pesticides, glyphosate, which is Roundup, and PCBs were below detection limits. The nutrient density of 6 abundant species compared favorably to that of the most nutritious domesticated leafy greens. And in this case, they compared it to kale, because they found that kale was the most nutritious thing that they could find in the supermarket. And then they found that it was at least comparable in everything to kale. And they concluded, wild edible greens harvested in industrial, mixed-use, and high-traffic urban areas in San Francisco East Bay area are abundant and highly nutritious. Even grown in soils with elevated levels of heavy metals, tested species were safe to eat after rinsing in cold water. Wild greens could contribute to nutrition, food security, and sustainability in urban ecosystems. And that's really important when you're thinking about food deserts in urban areas where people don't have access to fresh produce. You know, there's the gas station on the corner, you know, it's really hard to find things. In Baltimore, they found that when they surveyed 100 foragers in inner city Baltimore, that most of them were either very low income or very high income, which really says something to people that absolutely had to, or the people that knew the benefits and were doing it as, you know, basically, you know, a way of getting better food. All right, let's see if there's anything that I forgot. Oh, wanted to talk about if you wanted to get started with foraging, what you could do and what I would recommend. In terms of where your own neighborhood, if you have a lawn, a yard, and you don't spray, it's important. If you live in an apartment where they spray or something like that, don't forage there. But if you don't spray pesticides in your yard, then that's a great place to start. And you can start with simple things like dandelions. A lot of people have tried dandelion leaves, and they're very bitter. I'm not a big fan of dandelion leaves. They're extremely healthy, but they're not necessarily the best tasting. But what we do is we gather the dandelion flowers, and our kids ask every year if it's time for dandelion fritters yet. And we batter them and fry them, and then you can eat them in dipping sauces, or you can use them as a sweet, you know, with things like powdered sugar and syrup, things like that. No longer that healthy, but fun. And then we also make dandelion honey, which is like a vegan honey with dandelion blossoms and then sugar, and it tastes really delicious. And it's got all of the sort of healthy things, minerals and such from the flowers, but also it's just really fun. So, and then parks, most parks allow you to have, to forage if you take the parts that don't harm the plants, and that's, in terms of mushrooms, mushrooms are a fruiting body. The actual main organism is under the ground. So it doesn't harm the organism if you pick mushrooms. In Minnesota, at least, mushroom hunting is fine, as long as it's for personal use. And then also they allow like berries and fruits, because it doesn't harm the plant if you take an apple, if you take the raspberries, anything like that. Some parks will allow you to forage anything as long as you have permission. Some are pickier, some don't care. So you need to know your local parks. And then also, in your neighborhood, foraging doesn't have to mean something that's wild. It could be your neighbor has an apple tree that they never pick from. We've often gotten permission from people to pick from their apples or their pears, and they're happy to have us come use them because they just, you know, let them get wasted. And then we clean up under the trees, and so it helps them, cleans up their yard. We have a similar situation with our local nursing home, where they have a huge row of elderberries that cropped up in their bushes, and every year we have permission to come and harvest elderberries from there. They love seeing it being used, and we love being able to use it. So you can do all that sort of thing, and then also you can ask on private land, you know, especially if you know the person, or sometimes there'll be an abandoned house, you can find out who owns it, and you can say, is it all right if we pick from this? And generally, people are very happy to. In terms of what to start with a few things that you find, or start with what you're most interested in and look that up first. In terms of, you can go to the library and get a pile of foraging books, you know, and see what interests you. But you can look for mushrooms. There's a good book called How to Forage Mushrooms Without Dying. It just tells you the easy ones that are edible, because you don't need to know the thousands they haven't tested. You don't need to know the poisonous ones. You need to know these ones are edible. Here's, you know, what looks a little bit like it, you know, that sort of thing. And ones like morels, like in your order service, I can tell you on the front, that's morels on the side here.
Yep.
These are probably bullet mushrooms, these big ones here. That's wild asparagus. We get about 60 pounds of wild asparagus. This isn't my picture, I'm just like identifying it from here. But, and then, oh, violets. You see the violets in the picture? Violets make an amazing violet syrup, and it's wonderful with children because it changes color. So you steep your violets in the water overnight. It turns this beautiful purple blue, and then you strain those out. You add your sugar, and once you add any kind of acid like lemon, it turns hot pink. And so, and it's because it's a pH indicator. And downstairs, the elderberry lemonade, you'll see is red, and that's because it's got lemonade in it. Elderberries are dark purple. So, yeah, find things that are near you, find things that appeal to you, and then just learn a little bit at a time. But it's a wonderful way to help yourself, to help your family, to discover new foods. It's virtually free. And if you do it sustainably, responsibly, then it's a way to become a steward of the land, to develop a deeper relationship with nature, and to really get in touch with it all. And I think I've probably gone over by 20 minutes. But if anybody would like to ask any questions, I would be happy to do it downstairs afterwards.
Yeah, our house circle time.
Oh, okay.
That's the perfect time to do it.
Okay. So thank you very much.
Now is the time when we ask for your help to do the work of our church through an offering. Half of the cash funds in the collection plate today will be donated to McLaughlin Elementary School to help fund a special music concert.
these gifts freely. We receive these gifts gratefully. We dedicate these gifts to the work of our congregation, serving human wholeness, caring for our planet, upholding religious freedom, welcoming the stranger, loving one another.
Thank you for coming today. Thank you, Carol, for the music. Thank you, Terry, for the sound. Thank you, Paul, for reading. Thank you, Alicia and your family, for coming today. And thank you for everybody else who had all sorts of roles in the background, including Scott and Janet, and the hospitality, sitting downstairs, and that sort of thing. Our closing song is from our new hymnal, the New Goal Home. You can imagine calling earthly what the Blue Goal might represent. That is 1064.
Below me I feel no motions, standing on these mountains and plains, far away from the rolling ocean, still my dry heart can sing. I've been sailing all my life, never harbor or port have I known. The wide universe is the ocean I travel, and the earth is my blue boat home. I sail and move my as I fly the starry sea, leaning over the edge in wonder, casting questions into the deep. Drifting here with my ship's companions, all we kindred pilgrim souls, making our way by the light of the heavens, in our beautiful blue boat home. I give thanks to the waves upholding me, hail the great winds urging me on, read the infinite sea before me, sing the sky my sailor's song. I was born upon the fathoms, never harbor or port have I known. My universe is the ocean I travel, and the earth is my blue boat home.
Closing with words from Aldo Leopold. We abuse land because we see it as a commodity belonging to us. When we see land as a community to which we belong, we may begin to use it with love and respect.